Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Breaking Views on NDTV. I am Ankit Tyagi. Ladies and gentlemen, life of common citizens in Nuh in the Mewat region of Haryana is slowly finding its way again, limping back towards normalcy after tensions continued for days post the violence on July 31st during a yatra organized by the VHP. Apart from the questions on the state's inability to prevent this violence, serious questions were raised on what followed days after the riots on August 3rd. A demolition drive began in Nuh. Many unauthorized shanties, temporary shops, and some concrete structures were demolished in 3 days. There is a lobby, a lot of people who cheered. They said this is bulldozer justice being rolled out in yet another BJP-ruled state. The Home Minister of the state went on to the extent of terming this as part of the ilaj against those who are allegedly involved in the violence, while many poor residents claimed no prior notice was served to them before this bulldozer action began. Many activists termed this as targeted vendetta by the authorities, which have been embarrassed by questions over their inability to anticipate and stop the riots. On August 7th, taking suo motu cognizance, the Punjab and Haryana High Court not only stopped the demolition drive, but also raised some serious questions to the Haryana government. The division bench, ladies and gentlemen, of the Haryana and Punjab High Court, in fact, of Justices J.S. Sadwalia and Harpreet Kaur, asked whether properties of a particular community were targeted under the guise of a law and order problem. The court also went a step further and asked whether this is an exercise of ethnic cleansing being conducted by the government of Haryana. The court said power corrupts, tends to corrupt, absolute power corrupts absolutely. These are some very, very scathing remarks which have been made by the Punjab and Haryana High Court, taking the suo motu cognizance of this demolition drive. Now, time and again, concerns have been raised on this increasing practice of demolishing people's houses after someone from a family is accused of any wrongdoing. Activists have pointed out due process is not followed, and this demolition action is used as collective punishment, which some believe will deter future criminals. This idea of serving justice quick and cold through bulldozers emanated in Uttar Pradesh. It was the Yogi Adityanath government that started the bulldozer action. And remember, it all started in the wake of the protests against the Citizenship Amendment Act 2019. The government of Uttar Pradesh passed the order to recover damages from those who were allegedly involved in destroying public property. This is now a trend catching up, especially in the BJP-ruled states. Now, some big questions, ladies and gentlemen, which have come across post the drive in Nuh, which we hope to take up during the course of the discussion in the next half an hour. The questions that we are asking this evening: bulldozer action, is it an attempt at instant justice after communal clashes? Is it just a knee-jerk reaction by the Haryana government to cover up the lapses that led to the violence? Action taken against illegal structures only after violence? Why couldn't they be demolished, or action could be taken against them in so many years that they have been in existence? Was due process followed? How many people were served notices before the demolition? And selective bulldozer action, the High Court has said, is it an attempt at ethnic cleansing targeting one particular community? Joining me on the broadcast to discuss these big questions, Vineet Danda, advocate of Supreme Court, former Assistant Solicitor General, former Additional AG of Haryana as well. We are also being joined by Mr. Sanjay Hegde, Senior Advocate, Supreme Court, on the broadcast. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time out and speaking to us here on Breaking Views. I want to start by asking you, Mr. Dhanda, some very, very serious questions and concerns have been raised by the High Court, going to the extent of calling this an attempt at ethnic cleansing. Did the Haryana government follow due process? How suddenly, sir, after the riots only, the government realized that these were illegal structure that needed the attention of the administration?
So firstly, these remarks by the Honorable High Court of Punjab and Haryana are the initial remarks. The reply from the state of Haryana is yet to be filed, where justification will be given by the state of Haryana that these buildings were being used to commit anti-India activities. Firstly. Secondly, the people who do not follow law, who are doing terrorist activities, who are attacking these small children, women and men with heavy stones from the top of their buildings, they don't deserve any mercy. Any kind of law they don't deserve, because they themselves are not following any sort of law. Thirdly, very important thing is, sir, law protects those who follow the law. These people in Nuh and Mewat area, they have breached every possible sort of law which this country shows, and they are expecting some leniency from the state government.
Mr. Dhanda, I'm not talking about leniency, but are you telling me, sir, by saying that law protects those who follow the law, are you telling me that then all courts should shut down? As soon as somebody is accused of breaking the law, the police and the police station and the government should just take action, initiate action without any due process? Isn't the punishment in jurisprudence, the power to give any kind of punishment is given to the courts, not to the police station or to any government?
Sir, when we talk about a particular community, then all sort of laws are to be followed by the state. But when that particular community doesn't follow the law, then nobody questions, sir. Secondly, the Honorable Supreme Court of India also had this particular issue of Uttar Pradesh bulldozing the homes of these antisocial elements. The Honorable Supreme Court didn't grant any sort of stay. The present petition, the suo motu action which has been taken by Honorable High Court, it is at an initial stage on the basis of few media reports which were one-sided.
Okay.
Once the state of Haryana shows.
No, sir, the reason I didn't want to get politicians on the show, because I thought that it will be, I wanted a balanced legal view from both sides on this. It just seems that this argument is going on the same fact. If you don't follow law, I mean, it's a justification, no, sir, but I'm talking about, and Sanjay Hegde, I want you to come in on this. Any justification for a demolition drive, as we have seen in Nuh, as a part or as a penal consequence to a criminal act, is it in any way justified? Isn't it totally against the established jurisprudence of criminal justice?
I invite your viewers, please, Mr. Dhanda. I invite your viewers to open the Indian Penal Code and the Criminal Procedure Code. Please go all through, from section to section. There is not one section which says that if somebody is guilty of a crime, that any house in which he resides in will be demolished. So if you are saying that this is punishment for somebody's crime, then there is no warrant in law. Any government that does it is a lawless government. It does not believe in the rule of law, and demolitions like this are antithetical to the rule of law. So there is no question. This is not lawful. The second question is, do you think that law applies only to those who follow the law? Sorry. We are a country where even Ajmal Kasab was given the due process which he was entitled to. We as a government of laws rather than of men follow the rule of law and not the law of rulers. It cannot be that we have surrendered our civil liberties to many despots or many emperors who rule us and say we will send you a bulldozer in case you or anybody in your family go out of hand.
Okay.
That is simply not provided for, and that is why the Punjab and Haryana High Court, which is constitutionally required to be a sentinel on the qui-vive, which has to impose itself between despotism and protect the citizens.
Okay, but Mr.
has
Hegde,
done what it has done.
How do you respond to those who believe that it's high time that, some sort of an example that needs to be set? We are seeing this, one government after another following this kind of a practice, serving this justice, instant justice as you may, under the garb of illegal, illegal land use, of illegal structures being demolished.
It is not justice if it is done as punishment for some other criminal action. Now comes the question of whether a portion of land has been illegally occupied, illegally constructed. In that case, there are provisions in the law itself. For instance, in the municipal laws, there will be a provision that you first have to give them a notice. A notice is not enough. After you give them a notice, you have to give them a hearing. You have to give them enough time to prepare for the hearing. It cannot be that you backdate notices, write it in your own ledger that I've given him a notice, come the next day, paste it on somebody's gate or something, and then say I'm running the bulldozer.
Okay.
That is under the law. Everybody is entitled to procedure, to due process.
Okay.
Due process means that it has to be fair, just, and reasonable. Bulldozing is none of those things.
Okay. Mr. Dhanda, the two questions that also come up with this entire exercise that has been started by the government of Haryana. Number one, was due process followed, sir? Were people served notices? If they were served notices, as Mr. Hegde was pointing out, were there some sort of hearing with people? Did the people come back to the government, answered those notices before the government decided that these structures have to be demolished? And why, particularly after this violence, these structures have been there for years? Nobody is saying that illegal structures should be allowed, but first the government did allow them to be built, and then without any prior notices, they have just run bulldozer over these places. How does the government justify this?
Sir, the affidavit regarding that will be filed, but first let's come on the basic topic, sir, as to why this process of demolition started. Demolition started because the violence went to an extent where 7 people have been killed, thousands of crore rupees economy was affected, and Mr. Hegde says that due process of law should be followed. Since Ajmal Kasab was given this kind of due followance of law, that is where we are at this stage in our country, where a majority community cannot take out a peaceful religious procession.
I am sorry, Mr. Dhanda, are you talking as an officer of law, sir?
With due respect, I'll answer everything to you, sir.
No, but I'm just asking you, are you speaking as an officer of law? Are you speaking as an officer of law who is raising questions about due process, who is criticizing what this country gave the due process as far as Mr. Ajmal Kasab is concerned?
Sir, with due respect to you, I am trying to answer. Just give me a patient 1 minute, sir.
Sure, go ahead.
The show cause notices, the state government will answer in the Honorable High Court whether the show cause notices have been given or not. Firstly, the affidavits will be served to the concerned parties also. Secondly, the illegal shanties, which were temporary and they had been built up in recent times, they have been aggressively taken care of by the government. In that note, due process of law is required. If anybody creates a shanty near roadside and tries to block a highway, do you require to give a legal notice to him? There is a judge. And sir, if this bulldozing thing of criminals
Mr. Dhanda, you said, wrong, hear me patiently, I heard you for a minute. I just have a very small question to you before I go to Mr. Hegde. Can you, sir, point out, because you are a learned lawyer, can you point out from our constitution or from the IPC, under which section is the government allowed to use bulldozers as a form of punishment against anybody who is accused of anything, be it shanties or concrete structure?
I don't need to tell you the sections. The Honorable Supreme Court dealt the UP process of demolition. No stay was granted.
But I'm asking you, sir.
If Supreme Court has endorsed UP demolition, then
forget what Supreme Court said. I am asking you, sir. You are a learned lawyer. Under which sections do you think it is justified? Can you name me 2 sections? 1 section?
Of what? For what, sir?
Under which section of the Indian Penal Code is it justified to use a bulldozer?
Sir, every municipal corporation of a district is entitled to remove the illegal encroachments. That is the binding done by Honorable Supreme Court of India.
Okay.
But if the officers of municipality are found lacking in not demolishing the illegal encroachments, then you will be held in contempt of court. If
So
you say,
now your argument from the people, those who don't follow law, will face the wrath of the bulldozer. You should have no leniency. Goes to that municipality has the right to, in fact, go ahead and create and clear illegal structure. Sanjay Hegde, you heard what Mr. Dhanda is saying.
Yes. So let me just put the facts out.
Go ahead, sir.
There was this place called Jahangirpuri in Delhi. Violence occurred. Then bulldozers came out. Your media personnel made a huge a song and dance about it. They accompanied the bulldozers. The matter came up before the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court immediately stayed it. The Supreme Court asked the municipal corporation, why do you need bulldozers to remove tables and chairs? That was the similar kind of argument that, you know, these are small shanties and all that, and we were removing them. Even a shanty, even a small unauthorized structure can only be removed according to the due process of law, according to the regulations kept in the Municipal Act, and none of them have been followed. You must remember where this lady journalist went with the bulldozers only to be faced with an order of the Supreme Court, and similar kind of questions were tried to be raised, that we haven't seen the order, and they tried to go ahead with the bulldozers despite the Supreme Court stay order. Somebody had to step in front of those bulldozers and stop them.
Right.
Despite that, now the state of Haryana has joined the list of lawless states which seem to think that people live at their mercy and that they can be bulldozed anytime. It is antithetical to the rule of law, and it is against being in a democratic country.
Mr. Dhanda, I'm coming to you. Mr. Dhanda, I'm coming to you. Let Mr. Hegde complete his argument. Mr. Dhanda, don't you think, sir, even the initial remarks which have been made by the High Court, these are very, very scathing remarks. I mean, this is something for the government to go back and think exactly what they have done. I mean, going to the extent of calling it ethnic cleansing, sir.
Sir, if we'll read the Honorable High Court's judgment, the initial order, if you permit me, I'll read that part, sir.
Go ahead,
It's an initial remark based on the news reports which are one-sided. Kindly appreciate. The state government needs to reply that. And I'm reading that part, which is very important, sir. It is in such circumstances we are considered to issue notice to state, as it has come to our notice that the state of Haryana is using force and is demolishing buildings on account of the fact that some riots have occurred. Now it is some riots in Gurgaon and Nuh, apparently without any demolition orders and notices. The law and order problem is being used as a ruse to bring down buildings without following the procedure established by law. The issue also arises whether it is a question whether the buildings belonging to a particular community are being brought down under the guise of law. With due respect, sir, if a particular community... Sir, we follow...
Please read the whole thing. Please read the whole sentence. Do not be selective. Complete the sentence. Are being brought down under the guise of law and order problem,
whether the buildings belonging to a particular community are being brought down under the guise of law and order problem, and an exercise of ethnic cleansing is being conducted. It is whether, Mr. Hegde, you are very senior man, you should know that it is whether. It's not a finding of the Honorable Court.
Nobody is saying that, sir. Nobody is saying that this is the final finding of the court. But the fact remains that the court stopped this entire drive on account of some very serious questions.
With due respect, sir, it is a one-sided Times of India and 2-3 other newspaper articles. Once the Honorable High Court is made well versed with the statement and affidavit of the state of Haryana, the situation will be totally different, sir. Let's wait for the final conclusion. Let the replies be filed by the state of Haryana.
But you didn't answer one question that I asked you, sir. Even you were quoting some municipal laws, under which municipal law, which very clearly states that bulldozer
Sir,
or demolition drive can be taken out without following due process?
Sir, I am just giving you the brief. MC Mehta versus Union of India. There is a judgment of Honorable Supreme Court, and the municipalities and even the railways and the other requisite departments have been strictly advised and directed to not allow any encroachments on government lands or public land. And if they don't take any action, they are going to get hauled up for contempt of court. If I am saying
I just quickly go across to Mr. Hegde for one final comment. But before I do that, Mr. Dhanda, because you are quoting one example, let me quote you the Patna High Court Justice Sandeep Kumar's, in fact, order of a similar illegal demolition which was undertaken in presence of the police. In that, in fact, the court had gone ahead and said it seems that from the counter affidavit filed by the SHO, all officials are hand in glove with the land mafia. They have demolished the house of the petitioner without following due process. He also goes ahead and asks under which law have you done that? Have you deprived somebody of their entire right to, in fact, of shelter? Mr. Hegde, you heard what Mr. Dhanda is saying, that this is not the final observation, and he seems to be defending this entire action as far as a way of punishment is concerned, which we have now seen many states adopting, sir, in similar circumstances.
The doctrine of collective punishment has no place in a democracy. General Dyer used to do it, and we know what happened to the British Empire. This kind of collective punishment cannot be imposed. That's point one. Point two, bulldozers cannot be punishment. Bulldozers can only be used after due process in case of any illegal construction which cannot be removed except without a bulldozer. That's a different thing. Okay. When there was an illegal building in Supertech, it was brought down with explosives, but due process was followed.
Right.
This is a government which knows no law and knows no process.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Gentlemen, thank you so much for putting forward your views on this very, very important story which resonates from other states as well. In the end, the conduct of demolition drives, ladies and gentlemen, as a retaliatory measure, even with the avowed object to curb violence, many would say is a clear act of subversion of the principle of law. Very quickly, let me now, in fact, shift focus and go across to my colleague Ratnadeep Chaudhary, who is joining us at this moment with some very latest developments which have come across from Manipur, the state which has for the last 3 months been facing the strife, the ethnic clashes. In fact, Ratnadeep has been able to access an FIR which has been registered by the police in Manipur against the Assam Rifles. Ratnadeep, this is a very, very peculiar, serious situation where law enforcement agencies, which are there to help each other, try and bring down the violence in a very restive state, are now at loggerheads going ahead and complaining formally against each other's conduct.
That's right, and in fact it's bizarre. We don't find often that you have security forces at loggerheads filing complaints against each other. Remember, a video went viral. In that video, we could see that the two forces, the Manipur State Police Commandos and the Assam Rifles, were having an argument. In fact, the FIR has been filed last Saturday. This is in relation to the incident that took place in Bishnupur district near Kwatha, where according to police that day, sources had told us that the suspected militants were able to breach the buffer zone which has been created by central security forces around the between the hill region and the valley region to keep the two warring communities at a distance from each other, and were able to attack a village and kill 3 people, including a father and a son. And in fact, what has happened is that, according to the FIR, the police had a tip-off that a group of suspected militants were in that area in Kwatha ward number 8, and therefore they had launched a search operation. But it's according to the FIR, which has been filed by the officer in charge of the local police station there, that when the police party was moving and chasing the suspected militants, the Assam Rifles actually put their vehicles, a Casper bulletproof vehicle, on way and stopped them. And in this way, they could not nab the militants, and they had an argument. So this is something that which is very serious, and Center needs to take note of it.
Ratndeep, tracking the developments on the ground as they are happening in the state of Manipur, where peace is still out of sight. Thank you, Ratndeep, for joining us. That's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen, on this edition of Breaking Views. I'll be back tomorrow. Thank you so much for being with us.